to get our attention and would like to make remarks, please use it. We will have Billy and Tori on my team kind of monitoring that space to make sure that we give folks an opportunity to chat. For folks that are using other electronic devices, as I've mentioned, you will need to enable audio by entering *6 on your phone. And to members of the public, we would like you to please remain in mute mode for the entirety of the meeting, but we certainly welcome you and are glad you're here with us today.
Thanks, Sarah. Andrea, if I could ask you please do the roll call.
Sure. I'll start with you, Miss Agee.
Here.
Delegate Bagby.
Present.
Secretary Ball.
Here.
Senator Barker.
Present.
Ben Davenport.
Here.
Jim Dyke.
Here.
Thomas Farrell. Speaker Fillercorn.
Here.
Haywood Fralin.
Here.
Leah Freemout.
Here.
Senator Howell.
Here.
Doug Wanarina.
Here.
Secretary Lane.
Here.
Delegate Mugler. Delegate Mugler.
Maybe you need one. For
Secretary Carney.
Present.
her husband. Yeah,
Senator Ruff.
Here.
Todd Stottlemyre.
Here.
Robin Sullenberger.
Here.
Delegate Torian.
Here.
Pia Trigiani.
I'm here.
Marilyn West. Marilyn West. Joe Wilson.
Here.
And Debbie Wynn.
Here.
Okay, Delegate Mugler, we could not hear you. Could you try again? I'll make note of you being present. Ms. Agee, we do have a quorum.
Thanks, Andrea.
Nancy?
Just one moment. I did not do my job. There's one more statement I need to read before this meeting proceeds. I apologize.
All right.
Due to the governor's declared state of emergency due to COVID-19, it is impractical and unsafe for the Go Virginia board to assemble in a single location. So the meeting will be held electronically, by video, and also by phone pursuant to 2020 amendments to the 2019 Appropriation Act. Just as a reminder, the purpose of this meeting is to discuss or transact the business statutorily required or necessarily to continue operations of the Go Virginia board and program in discharging its lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. The public is welcome to use the number which has been provided in the agenda and posted publicly to attend the meeting electronically. We will make this meeting available, a full recording or transcript, as well as meeting minutes, and we will provide that in the timelines established in sections 22-3707 and 22-37011. And I would just like to remind folks that Google Meet does have a closed captioning. So if we have anyone with us today who may have a hearing impairment or would just like to have a little bit different experience, it's actually, I found it to be fairly good. So the button to turn on captions is on the bottom of your screen. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. To that end, Andrea, could you please read any public comments submitted?
There were no public comments submitted this time.
All right, thank you so much. We have a consent agenda. You have all this information ahead of you. I should probably just start the meeting by saying we have 2 hours scheduled for this meeting. My guess is it will go much shorter than that. I know it's tiresome to have to do the roll call after every every time we have an action, but the rules are the rules, and so we just need to do that. So we have 3 items included in our consent agenda today: the minutes from the last board meeting, guidelines for the regional councils to amend their 2021 growth and diversification plans, and the annual certification of the 9 regional councils. Are there any questions related to the consent agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve the remaining consent agenda items?
So moved. This is Pia Trigiani.
Is there a second? Thank you. Andrea, would you read the roll call again?
I'll start with you, Miss Agee.
Agree?
Delegate Bagby. A yay or nay? Delegate Bagby. Okay. Secretary Ball.
Aye.
Senator Barker.
Aye.
Ben Davenport.
Yes.
Jim Dyke.
Yes.
Tom Farrell, I'll skip. Speaker Fillercorn.
Aye.
Haywood Fralin.
Aye.
Leah Freeman.
Aye.
Senator Howell.
Aye.
Doug Wanarina.
Aye.
Secretary Lane.
Aye.
Delegate Mugler. Try one more time. Delegate Mugler. We can't hear you.
Just as a reminder, if you're on the phone, *6 will unmute your device.
Okay, we'll move on to Secretary Carney.
Aye.
Senator Ruff.
Aye.
Todd Stottlemyre.
Aye.
Thank you. Robin Sullenberger.
Aye.
Delegate Torian.
Aye.
Pia Trigiani.
Aye.
Marilyn West. Joe Wilson. Joe Wilson.
Aye.
Thank you. And then Mr. W. Wynn.
Aye.
Thank you.
Delegate Bagby, both sides.
Okay, thank you. Noted.
Okay, thank you all. So our consent agenda is passed. I'd like to turn it over now to Eric Johnson to begin a discussion about new business.
Thank you, Vice Chair Agee, and thank you, board members, for being with us today and for your time. You can see on page 10 and 11 of your packet, item 3A and 3B, and these items are in regards to a request to extend the major pandemic-related response that the board approved in the early days of the pandemic last year, not too long past this time, that enabled for the 3A item for the Go Virginia Economic Resilience and Recovery Program with the $14.66 million in competitive funds. You reprogram funds with $1 million each for each of the regions, and then also a competitive pool. And to date, 7.8 million of those funds have been obligated, and they really were essential funds to help the regions deploy quickly programs to respond to the economic impacts of the pandemic. So what's before you today with item 3A is really an extension of the Economic Recovery and Resiliency Program, not with new funds, but with the remaining funds for the competitive pool and the funds for each region, to extend this program to June 30th, 2022, so that the program next year can continue to see those projects, the board can see those projects from the regions. And then item 3B is continuation of the Go Virginia program match requirements through June 30th, 2022 as well, to allow for that lessening of the match requirement in light of the pandemic and the impacts on the local local match, and also allow that waiver that the board has the authority to do to continue for an additional year. So that's what's before you, and Vice Chair Agee, it's up to the board if you want to take those separately, or and take questions or take them in a block. But we as DHCD staff are recommending a continuation of that policy.
Thanks, Eric. I'm going to take the chairman's prerogative and say we'll vote for both as a block, unless someone wants to challenge that decision.
I think that's a good.
So moved. Is there a second? That's a good idea. Okay, we'll have a quick roll call. Andrea, is it possible? Is it appropriate to just ask if there's any dissenters and then assume everyone is an aye?
Nancy, if you don't, this is Sarah, just interrupting briefly. I want to make sure, I know it's difficult in this forum. We get a first and a second, but I can't reverse that, but it might be good to pause and just see if anyone, if there'd like to be a discussion before the vote. I noticed a few members may desire to do that.
Is there any discussion?
I have a question. This is Debbie. Eric, on the 5.66 million that is in the Opportunity Fund, what is the difference in that for multi-regional applications and all of the other funds that we have available for multi-regional applications? In other words, for the purpose of what they're used. I see the waivers and all that, but what?
Yeah, it's a
Can
good
you
question.
clarify that a bit?
Sure, Vice Chair Agee. Mr. Nguyen, thank you for that good question. And so this is extending the program for the economic recovery and resiliency, but remembering that program, we also, the board also created some greater flexibilities in the ERR, as we're calling it, funds to respond to pandemic-related impacts in healthcare and the tourism sector and the Main Street sector as well. So the main difference would be that these ERR funds are beyond just the extension of the date. Those funds, as compared to the competitive funds, two main differences: have some additional eligibility and the match waiver applies to them. The competitive funds that are available statewide for the normal Go Virginia effort, they don't have that match waiver on those funds. So we're still requiring the one-to-one match on those competitive projects you're seeing that are not ERR funds.
I guess what I'm trying to understand, if somebody proposes, somebody's phone's up. If somebody proposes a multi-regional thing that's going to create a lot of jobs, how closely does that need to be aligned to the pandemic for us to act on it in this way?
I'll start and then see if Sarah, if you'd like to add anything. But the first two projects with the ERR competitive were the Gen Edge manufacturing project, which was helping with the cluster scale up to help with transitioning, retooling manufacturing in response to the pandemic, and an opportunity with the pandemic for that kind of new onshoring. And the other project was the small business development center effort on the $1 million project that was approved there. Both of the small business development center would not have been eligible under the typical Go Virginia program. And so in essence, when the team and Sarah and her team project would come forward, they'd work with the regions to see if it was more pandemic focused and recovery versus a long-term pipeline of expanding our economy in the traditional economic development, traditional Go Virginia sense. Sarah, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think it's a good explanation, and it's a really good question. We have, we've created an application for the Economic Resilience and Recovery Program. And, the applicant needs to speak directly to how this is going to help mitigate the economic impact of the pandemic. And the first two statewide applications that Eric has described, we think were kind of exemplary of that. Now, that doesn't mean if the, statewide ERR pool, for example, were to be exhausted, that we would not look to our regular statewide competitive fund, which is still there. This was prior year funding that we basically attached or made available for this effort. So hopefully that answers your question.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
So thanks for that question. You know, I think just to repeat it, there's not a bright line division. The good news is it's a little different, little additional money. Is there other discussion? If not, I think we already had a motion, but let's have, let's be
I have
sure.
a question.
Oh, okay, David, or can't see who.
This is Don Ferguson with the Attorney General's office.
Yes, Dawn.
You have a motion on the table. I did not catch who actually made the motion or made the second. And also you posed the question of whether you could just ask for any objections to the motion rather than take an actual vote. The answer to that is no. You have to actually take an affirmative vote.
Okay.
Yeah, but Jim Dyke made the motion.
And the second? Or is there a second?
Yeah, Debbie.
Thanks, Debbie. Okay, Andrea, will you please do the roll call?
Yes, I'll start with Vice Chairman AG.
Yay.
Thank you. Delegate Bagby,
Aye.
Secretary Ball,
Aye.
Senator Barker,
Aye.
Ben Davenport,
Yes.
Jim Dyke,
Yes.
Tom Farrell, not here, Speaker Fillercorn,
Aye.
Haywood Fralin,
Aye.
Leah Freemow,
Aye.
Senator Howell,
Aye.
Doug Wanarina,
Aye.
Secretary Lane,
Aye.
Delegate Mugler, Secretary Carney.
Delegate Mugler votes aye.
Aye.
Okay, noted for both of you. Thank you. Senator Ruff,
Aye.
Todd Stottlemyre,
Aye.
Robin Sullenberger,
Aye.
Delegate Torian,
Aye.
Pio Trigiani,
Aye.
Marilyn West, Joe Wilson,
Aye.
and Debbie Wynn.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes. If I could remind you that if you aren't speaking, if you would leave your mute on, I think that would decrease some of the noise back in the background. Okay. How about we move to our outcomes and impact? This has been especially important to me. And the folks have done a really nice job of doing some real due diligence here. So I'm going to turn it over to Eric and Sarah for a presentation about outcomes and impact of Go Virginia.
Thank you, Nancy. I'm going to share a little bit, which is really the result of a research effort of a young man by the name of Bradley Shipp, who's been working with us since the fall. We really wanted to start taking a look at Go Virginia, the program, evaluating the effort, had lots of good conversations with board members. Is Go Virginia making a difference? Is it making a difference in the areas where we thought it would? Are there things that we need to be doing as leaders of this initiative to right course, perhaps strengthen certain areas of our program activities? So for a number of months, we've been involved in this internal evaluation project, and really to look at the grant performance management system, that whole cycle. And I've spoken with you before about all of the controls and steps that DHCD has instituted, but also to conduct a review of 22 projects that have actually closed. So these were your early, late 17, 18 projects that have completely closed from a fiscal perspective, and with just a few exceptions from a performance period exception, they are fully closed as well. So As a reminder, Go Virginia grants are typically for 2 years. The board created early on something called an enhanced capacity building grant. Those are planning grants. Those tend to be about a 12 to 18-month grant. I'm going to talk to you about both of those. Mr. Shipp designed this research effort. I'm going to share his results and findings. The first thing we wanted him to do on our behalf was really to review board policies, administrative guidance, and all of our procedures. Review this idea of committed outcomes, which again are articulated in contracts we enter into with our awardees, which we call subgrantees, and to see how well they delivered to those outcomes. We also wanted to reflect on the importance of the growth and diversification plan in a couple of key areas, how projects are selected by the regional councils, and also how their impact or influence on plan goals may come into play in discussion. We wanted to look at things like continuity and sustainability. To be candid, our money is in and out pretty quickly. Sustainability was an item that was named, I think, very early by this body as something important. We wanted to be a catalyst, but we wanted to make sure that the recipients had very quickly a plan to sustain the efforts. We wanted to look at this influence on regional cooperation and collaboration, which I think was kind of a core tenet of Go Virginia. And we've got some good news to report there. And then also to evaluate the impact on those priority traded sectors, an important focus for Go Virginia. Next slide, please. We used a number of tools and techniques. We looked at obviously all of our application commitments, reviewed every single contract, the contract language to a T. We looked at variances between committed and delivered outcomes. We looked at the financial closeout, so that was the degree to which funds awarded were spent. And then we also looked at performance closeout, and this whole closeout process has been created by DHCD. It has to be affirmed by the regional council chairperson so that they know when a project is closing what the final results were, and they can check that against those original commitments. Brad did a number of facilitated interviews, dozens of them actually, with the subgrantees and the support organizations that are really so critical in this process to make sure that they understood kind of the goals and outcomes, and they felt like we had all the controls and processes in place. Next. So we're looking primarily only at projects that closed out prior to June 30th, 2020. Those are, again, fully closed fiscally, and I think with one exception, fully closed from a performance period. What does that mean? Some workforce projects, for example, may have one additional year after they expend the funds to track and report on certain outcomes, such as the individual who would earn a credential, right? So maybe that student's going through the course right up until the end of the grant period, and there needs to be some time that follows for them to actually attain that credential. Next slide, please. There were actually 22 grants, and you can tell that doesn't add up to 22. There's actually 11 enhanced capacity building grants and 11 per capita implementation projects that I'm going to talk to you a little bit about here in a minute. Just the big story in terms of investments for these 22 projects, it was relatively small. These were early days, 3.6 million amongst the 22, leveraging and bringing to the table about 6.4 million in match. So this is already a pretty good amount of leverage. In terms of regional cooperation, there were 56 different localities that participated financially in one or more projects. So we do track local participation. Of significant interest are our local governments, of course, who contribute resources to the project. This is the distribution of the 22. There's at least one from each region. We took a look at sector focus because obviously the growth and diversification plans are really designed to put emphasis on initiatives and activities that support certain sectors. If you could go back one, Cody, please. You can see we've got agriculture, health, life sciences, IT, and manufacturing are the two most prevalent sectors assisted through the efforts. Professional services, water technologies, and then there were 6 projects that had multiple sector impact or undefined impact. And we'll see that in some of the planning grants around entrepreneurship, for example, because they were really looking to explore what are going to be those high impact or high impact opportunity areas for our startup ecosystem to kind of focus its efforts and resources. Next slide. So let me tell you about the Ecbs, and I know these were created after the start of the program in an interest to kind of to get the pipeline going, right? To get some ideas created for projects. Under the guidelines, each region can use up to $250,000 of their annual per capita allocation. So each region is given an allotment of resources, and they can use a portion of those to support feasibility studies, pilot projects, concept validation. And this is a special category of investments. They're small, all of them less than $100,000. And the board gave DHCD the authority to approve those administratively. In all cases, the applicants are really advised to design their effort, or their experiment, right, to identify or advance an implementation project. So these are pre-implementation grants. Next slide. And there were some great ones. This is just a list for folks who have been on the board from the beginning or not. There were 4 in the site development and infrastructure space. One here on the Eastern Shore. The flexible office space due diligence was in Region 6, actually in Westmoreland County. Lynchburg had a really interesting project doing some site characterization work. And the Gateway region as well, which is in the southern half of Region 4, that's Roanoke, did some site characterization work. There were 4 projects in the startup ecosystem space. The first was the Capital Ecosystem Development Plan. The next was coal to graphene. That was in Southwest Virginia, really exploring kind of a new technology and some potential for commercialization of a process that Virginia Tech had developed. The Mobile Hub Lab, that was Region 8, SOVA Innovation Hub, and then there were 3 workforce projects, again, planning for the Central Virginia Cybersecurity Partnership, the Hampton Roads Coalition for Talent Development, and another project in Region 8, really for them to develop a strategy around talent, acquisition, retention, and development. Next slide. These 11 projects, about $750,000, brought to the table match of about 1.1. I think what was most exciting for me when we looked at these projects is 100% of them have led or will soon lead to a future project. Now, not all of those will pursue Go Virginia funds, but I think what we have learned and the partners have learned is this opportunity to really test the feasibility, to put together the right partnerships has been absolutely critical, and I'm going to give you just a few examples there. Some of the significant impact areas that we noted, regional collaboration. Really a planning and study effort, in my opinion, is kind of a relatively low risk way to bring folks to the table and start really, really important conversations. And not just local governments, right? Other types of local partners, community colleges, school divisions, planning districts, employer consortiums, and other types of community-based organizations have all worked on some of these efforts. What has it created? In many cases, new sustained training capacity. And I'll speak to the cyber initiative application in Region 9, for example. While it was a planning grant, part of that plan was to really create some new capacity. So that's been pretty exciting. I think in every case, new market insight and thinking about sequencing of projects, which is absolutely critical. So there's some important learnings, right? You do a research effort or validation project and you think you should be doing A, but what you realize is really there's an interim step that needs to happen before A. So it's enabled some of the partners to pause and I think build the foundation, recognizing that the project they were proposing is coming, but it needs to come later, and there need to be additional resources identified to support it. Enabled the attraction of additional non-state investment, and I think that the Capital Ecosystem Project in Region 2 is really exemplary for that, because I think it created it set a table for a number of really, really exciting discussions in Region 2. And enabled them to attract some non-state investment, I think, because of it. And again, I think that's nice. I'm going to talk to you about a couple of the projects. Next slide, please. The first one is what I would call, it's probably our earliest effort to really do regional prioritization of sites. And this was led in Lynchburg by the Business Alliance. It's a relatively small investment of about $70,000. Characterize 6 sites and determine the next steps to move those sites to a tier 3. This is specifically focused on manufacturing and advanced manufacturing, which we know is important for this subregion within Region 2. And it has led to a second project, a funded project of about $366,000 called the Amherst LYH Site Readiness Project. So, but what it did most importantly, I think it really set a table for a regional conversation. So the Lynchburg Regional Business Alliance, I think because in part of Go Virginia and this opportunity, created a regional economic development roundtable in effect to talk about their highest, best opportunities. And this characterization study in part led them to these decisions. Next slide. The Capital Ecosystem Development Plan. This was, again, a relatively small investment, $77,000, to really assess the weakness in the capital landscape that inhibited entrepreneurship and commercialization, and to create a capital pathway plan, okay? This has led to a number of different implementation projects, in my opinion. And I think just being able to sit and do this type of gap analysis with all of the partners at the table and people recognizing their strengths and their opportunities to contribute to really strengthen the ecosystem in Region 2 has led to a number of efforts. I believe RAMP, some work that Vic is doing now, the Innovation Council with their REI, work that the Advancement Foundation has done and will be doing. And then really super collaboration. We're just reading of a new entity called Verge in Region 2. And so I think Go Virginia in this case created a building block. Doug's nodding his head, so I'm appropriately representing this. And so I think the impact has been really significant for what was a very small planning grant. Thank you. Next slide. The Hampton Roads Coalition for Talent Development, Hampton Roads Workforce Council led this effort. Again, a little less than $100,000, has really put the Workforce Council in a position to do some very significant work in the Hampton Roads area. So enabled them to develop a plan to really convene business leaders and to identify really high opportunity areas of focus. And we have funded a second initiative called the Tech Talent Pipeline Development Program with the Workforce Council as lead. So I think the research effort also helped to create some capacity and some acknowledgement of capabilities within the council as well. That's going to continue to advance the work. Next slide. I'm going to talk to you just briefly now about the per capita fund implementation projects. Okay, so what we just talked about was planning. Now we're going to talk about implementation. As I mentioned, each region is provided with an allocation of funds. They can be used in different ways. Actually, enhanced capacity building grants, you use per capita funds to do that, and you can use a certain percentage of that each year. The Regional Entrepreneurship Ecosystem Planning, the REI, that's always also funded through a region's per capita allocation. So we looked at 11 projects, those designed to support specific programmatic activity and deliver towards the metrics established by the board. And I would love to engage a conversation at a later meeting about those metrics, which were adopted in December of 2018 different type of metrics for each priority investment area for the Go Virginia program. Next slide. These are the projects. We had the Woodhaven Roadside Water Project, 3 startup ecosystem projects, including 757 Seed Fund, a project with the Advancement Foundation in Region 2, another entrepreneurial endeavor in Region 2 called RAMP, and then 7 workforce development projects. Now, I think it's important to recognize where we were in the business cycle when Go Virginia got off the ground, right? Really at a peak, the unemployment rate was very low, and I think all of our regions were thinking hard about how can we create more job-ready talent to continue to support the industries that are important to us. And so you can see there were 7 projects in that category. Next slide. So what were the outcomes for those projects? Well, we did a full accounting, and just to be clear, in our early contracts, a lot of our I would say our metrics were not discrete targets or goals. So an applicant might say, we are going to increase the number of welders in our region, right? We're going to develop new capacity to over time do that. In some cases, we had very discrete targets and goals. In most all cases, our subgrantees reported these types of outcomes. So this is just a synopsis of that. 400 different businesses served, 110 acres of business-ready sites advanced, an additional 1.2 million of new private investment leveraged, 225 workforce credentials awarded, 1,500 newly trained workers, and 450 jobs created for these 22 projects. So we feel, I think, really good about this particular group. Not all projects have their final performance reports. All that's going to do is really increase the picture here, improve it. Next slide. So what did we learn? Well, this was about $2.9 million worth of investment, matching funds of about 5.3. 8 of the 11 projects were completed successfully. And I'm going to pause now because someone's going to say, what happened to the other 3? Actually, the news is very good. So the first project from Region 9, I'll talk with you about crafting higher paying jobs in the adult beverage exports, actually exceeded its workforce training commitment, delivered on the new training programs, and only spent about 12% of the money that was initially awarded. And we'll talk about the recalculated ROI on that investment. Now, what did not happen is the training center. And again, if you guys remember early, the community college was envisioned to create a standalone training center for the beverage industry. And because of just various challenges, was not able to execute on that portion. All of those funds were returned to Region 9 to be deployed on future projects. A little bit about the 757 Seed Fund. This was a Region 5 project. They did some just incredible groundwork. And at the end of the day, what they delivered was an alternate, more resource efficient, quite frankly, collaborative solution to a problem. And what they ended up doing was looking at the need for seed level funding among entrepreneurs in their region. And they found a partner in Richmond. And agreed that that was really the best way to accomplish the goal for their effort. 32% of the awarded funds were expended. Excuse me, 33. And then the Tech Talent Pipeline Project, which was a Northern Virginia community college, they identified other sources of funding. So they delivered on those outcomes and were able to do so without Go Virginia resources. All returned unexpended funds to the region. So that's a note about the 3, what we would call terminated projects. Again, significant impact areas, regional collaboration, very, very significant. I mean, particularly in our interviews with the support organizations and with the awardees themselves, it put them in a place where they could have conversations about how to collaborate, share resources, and leverage resources. Clearly, there is new sustained training capacity in areas of high demand, so expanded capacity, completely new training capacity that didn't exist before the Go Virginia Fund investment. I think innovative, new, really business-led workforce efforts where the business community is playing a really meaningful leadership role. And I think some investments using some very innovative technology approaches, particularly in emerging technology clusters. And I think those are exciting results. We've identified a lot of cross-regional resource efficiencies that have come from these efforts. And we think that as a goal is something also we think about Go Virginia. Next slide. So let me just briefly hit on a couple of these projects. This is the property out there in Western Virginia. This was our first site project funded. We've come a long way. This site is now a Tier 4 site. And since this funding, they've attracted more than 20 prospects to look at this site. The RIFA, the Regional Industrial Facility Authority, we didn't create that, but we did create a source of funding for these entities who were already collaborating on site development to work on this particular endeavor. Next slide. An innovation mill is on the slide here. The Advancement Foundation is really the leader. This was a two-phase project, $150,000. The Innovation Mill was a new program and is doing some really creative things for startup entrepreneurs that are in the proof of concept stage. Also high potential, high growth potential companies, and really have become an important, I think, connector and early phase for the ecosystem in Region 2. They did receive a phase 2 contract. In addition to the outcomes that you see here, I'm excited that the Advancement Foundation is having some conversations about doing work outside of Region 2. And I think it's because they've been able to prove their ability to execute on these types of endeavors. They're doing significant mentor training and engagement, which I think, again, builds a completely new capacity in Region 2. I think there is definitely a focus on the industry clusters that are in Region 2's growth and diversification plan. This is a project we've been really excited about. Next slide. This is RAMP. This is a welding training project. It's about $100,000. This one, in my opinion, has one of the strongest tracked outcomes, and it's just partially because they put it first. When they got started. Manufacturing, advanced manufacturing. This is Buyers Training Institute. I apologize, BTI. 131 credentials awarded, 20 different businesses served, and the average graduate wage is about $44,000. This is out in the southern portion of Shenandoah Valley, I guess, northern portion of Roanoke. In terms of ROI, we recalculated kind of based on actual outcomes, and we believe based on the earnings and the employment actually obtained by these graduates, just during the grant performance period, it's about $3.58, and that's just a fiscal impact to the Commonwealth. Secretary Lane, that's income taxes and sales taxes that we project as a result of those jobs. Of course, these results continue, right? Because those folks are in the workforce, and this training program is going to perpetuate and continue to produce results over time. Next slide. And this is our fantastic, I don't even want to call it a failure because I think there are still some really exciting results. There were 3 new training programs created really to focus on industry sector, really important to the Charlottesville Region 9, wine and cider making, craft brewing, and distilling. And they developed an agribusiness curriculum and career pathway that supports the scale up of this industry sector, and quite frankly, also creates opportunities for entrepreneurs, right? Folks that might want to start their own business in one of these category areas. This grant was suspended, but the workforce programs were created. They continue to have enrollment and produce students with the credentials that industry desires. They reported 88 jobs created during the period, and again, they only spent about $29,000 We recalculated the ROI based on their actual outcomes, and just for the performance period of the grant, we believe this project generated about $12.62 for the Commonwealth for every dollar spent. And again, as they continue to produce graduates and students in this area, we would only expect those types of returns to increase. Next slide. So what did we learn? We're still learning. Brad's going to be wrapping this project up for us, including some internal recommendations for DHCD staff. But this is what we learned. We asked the question, does everybody clearly understand what we're trying to do here with Go Virginia, the goals of the program, and generally the pathway to get there? And it was, we definitely found that the support organization staff that provide such vital support to the regional councils and the grant awardees definitely understand the purpose and intentions of Go Virginia. So we also found that for the most part, board policy and the guidance has been consistent. It has been refined since the beginning of the program. So it's fairly clear the types of applications, the types of outcomes that are expected to be created from those, and how we'd like to track and measure them has improved. Our application and contract procedures, our quarterly reporting, really reinforce this outcome orientation. And it keeps everybody on track and accountable. I would like to say the regional councils take significant responsibility here. So I would just like to recognize and thank the regional council leadership and the support org staff in their efforts to continue to manage these grants even after an award is made by the state board. They take it very seriously, and they've created what I think are some best practices around dashboards and other types of grant tracking and monitoring tools. The Ecbs, whoever's idea that was a good idea because I think for relatively small investments, it has driven the types of results that the board expected, and that was to create more projects and better quality projects as a result. And they have acted as a catalyst towards a lot of other things, a lot of other exciting collaborative efforts, perhaps not even related to that initial grant. The last piece is some per capita projects will be suspended before completion. Okay, just in our small sample of 11. We found that, and for various reasons. But I don't think we need to get discouraged by that. In fact, what we learned is many times they were suspended because they found other sources of funding. They recognized they were moving down a path where it would not be a good use of state resources to continue, or there were other solutions found. Those are three, I think, very good, valid reasons to terminate a project, very responsible reasons to terminate a project as well. Next slide, please. Opportunities for improvement. This is the public list. I guess there's a lot more for us, I think, to work on back home. But I think what we really heard was we need to continue to allow creativity and flexibility. And I remember because I was in the governor's administration when Go Virginia was first being created, and there was just lots of conversations about wanting this to be nimble, wanting it to behave as a startup, and let's see what comes to us before we kind of set the frame. I think it is a good time to talk again about core performance indicators for each investment area or grant. And I'm hoping if we can get together in person, fingers crossed in September, I'd love to help facilitate a discussion about that. From our end, we need to make sure that the recipients have the capacity and ability to track against the outcomes that are committed in their contract. This seems like a very simple thing, but what we have found at times is, yeah, we said we were going to do it, but we haven't figured out how to count it yet. We'd like to provide some more technical support in those areas. The other thing, I think we need to discuss is not everything that's important can be counted. Okay, so questions about how do we actually measure or demonstrate increases in regional collaboration, right? If that was an aspirational goal of the Go Virginia program. How do we make sure that we don't get fixed on the performance period of the grant, right? The results in that 2-year period, and that we recognize that they're going to continue to produce results after that grant period is over. There is some areas where we believe we could, through improved technical assistance, help these efforts. And I think there was a big interest in just overall improving communication, talking about success stories. And I know Eric and I have proposed that we start making, as a part of your quarterly meeting, just a wrap up of the projects that have closed in that prior quarter, or probably the quarter before that, just so that we can get all of our documentation together. The quote on the side was from one of the interviewees. You know, I think that we've made significantly more progress than any numbers might show. That's because we're building regional capacity, awareness, and real success. And I think as successful as all of these 22 grants were, I think there's a real story here around Go Virginia and the degree to which it has influenced, incentivized, and rewarded regional collaboration. And we will provide some more information. I've got summaries of each of the projects. If anyone's ever interested, we're happy to share those with you or discuss. Next slide. If it's appropriate, Madam Chair, I'd be available if there were any questions.
Sarah, thanks so much. I think that, maybe the most important thing you said is that not everything that's important can be counted. And one of the early concerns we had was regional cooperation and collaboration, and we clearly have seen that and continue to see that strengthen. But there are things that can be counted too, whether it's new training programs or the numbers of people who have been trained and high demand areas or unmet needs. Innovation, technologies. There's a lot of real work here. So I'm really pleased about this evaluation and appreciate it. I'd like to open it up to any discussion, and Sarah's happy to answer any questions. Okay, well, I don't want to cut off any discussion. Then we will, Sarah, thanks again. We will move to the rest of our agenda, and I think, Eric, you're going to take over now.
Can we just say for the record, that was a very useful report. Thank you, Sarah. Very thorough. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Dyke.
Well, thank you, Vice Chair Agee, and thank you, Sarah, for that report, and Bradley for the great work. And the Virginia Management Fellow Program is give a plug to, is an excellent program. We're glad to get Bradley through that Governor and General Assembly supported program. So we're going to move now to the section of your agenda under the Director's Report on the applications. And so we're at the competitive applications section. DHCD did receive a total of 14 applications this round, including 9 per capita implementation projects, 1 statewide competitive, and 4 of the economic recovery and resilience projects for a review, 13 of which are in front of you today, a part of the packet, representing approximately $10,448,000 in requests. Please note that included in the packet are 2 projects for which staff, based on work group feedback, are recommending to defer for further work or refinement by the regions. And just as a note for board members, as you all know, that's a common practice that we have in many cases gotten back projects that are in much better form for the Go Virginia guidelines and for the impact and outcomes that Sarah just reported on. So when Sarah reviews each project, she'll make note of these recommendations for each. Please also note that 1 application was removed from the packet, and that was the site-specific readiness for IT Growth Center in Region 2. I would like to thank those that participated in the February work group review for these applications before you. We had board members Ben Davenport, Jim Dyke, Haywood Fralin, Leah Freemow, Robin Sullenberger, Pia Trigiani, Marilyn West, Joe Wilson, and Debbie Wynn. And then we also had our subject matter experts. And we thank them for their volunteer time as well to this effort. Dr. Julie Brown, with the Director of the Advanced Learning at IALR. Keith Kennedy, the Deputy Executive Director for the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission. Wirt Confery with the Virginia Tourism Corporation. Susan DeSubio with VEDP. Kathy Dolan with the Small Business and Supplier Diversity. Larkin Garby, founder of Good Work Society in the entrepreneurial ecosystem space. John Loftus with VEDP. Chris McNamara with VEDP. Lucy Mead with Venture Richmond. Debbie Melvin with VEDP. Dr. Patrice Perry Rivers, who's the Director of the Center for Entrepreneurship at Virginia State University. Cass Rasnick, Deputy Secretary of Commerce and Trade. Randy Stamper, Assistant Vice Chancellor at the Virginia Community College System. And Nathan Sable, the IT and Cybersecurity Practice Manager at GenEdge. I'm going to ask Sarah to review the details of each project. And the Vice Chair would like to vote on those in blocks, and we'll go through that as we go through the projects. So after each presentation type on the topic, the Chair and Sarah will work through those votes with you. And obviously feel free to pull an application if you want further discussion. If you don't want to vote on it in the block, just know that option's available to you. So with that, I'll turn it to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Eric. We received one statewide competitive application this cycle, and this project is entitled the Cybersecurity Job Creation System. There are 3 regions participating. The lead on this application is Region 5, that is Hampton Roads. Regions 3 and 4 have also endorsed this application. The investment strategy is workforce development. And the overall goal of the project is to really develop and deliver a cost-effective cloud-based compliance system to help Virginia's defense contractors achieve what's called the CMMC, or Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, which is going to be required of all contractors very shortly. The applicant is actually the ODU Research Foundation. They are going to be leading the charge. It is a 2-pronged approach. One is to develop a 6-course online program, which will be available statewide and through the 4VA online educational consortium. So all of the post-secondary educational institutions participate. So that's one piece. And the second piece is the cybersecurity job, the compliance system. And the compliance system will really focus on small DoD contractors who need an affordable solution to compliance challenges. The CMMC, as it rolls out, is going to require an audit of types. So organizations who want to do business with the defense industry will need to achieve accreditation, and there will be third parties that come out and do evaluations, just as a bit of background. Go Virginia funds will be used to support salaries, contract services, and select legal expenses. The total Go Virginia request is $1.45 million. The match in the application was about $2.9 million. 378,750 of that was local, and the total budget, as you see there. In terms of outcomes, they are hoping the education program will be delivered online by at least 2 Virginia universities over the first 3 years of the grant, support 144 new cybersecurity positions, and retain 328, again, noting that this will be a competency requirement for many jobs in the future. Over the 3 years, 169 credentials will be awarded. ODU is going to create, again, this certificate program with a credential. Just a little bit about the work group discussion. This is a 3rd submission for this application. It's the first time the board has seen it. There were some previous, we felt, improvements that could be made upon the application. And the most significant is that the applicant has shifted to the ODU Foundation and their very capable cybersecurity program. This project certainly aligns with the target industry sectors in Region 5, as well as Region 3 and 4. Staff and work group members noted there is very limited participation at the regional level. So the local participation, and local meaning from the lead region, Region 5, is really coming from Virginia Beach in the form of a letter of support and some in-kind support from the Hampton Roads Workforce Council on behalf of their member local governments. And that is Chesapeake, City of Franklin, City of Norfolk, Portsmouth, Suffolk, Virginia Beach, Isle of Wight, and Southampton. The application, quite frankly, in its current form, lacks the qualified local match. There is match provided by local governments, but they are outside of the 3 regions that are submitting that application principally. They are in Northern Virginia, Region 7, the largest portion provided by the Fairfax County Economic EDA, and I have confirmed and understand their commitment to this project. We acknowledge this is a critical issue facing the defense community. The CMMC issue is going to be big, and it's going to be challenging, particularly for small to mid-size organizations, to meet the requirements of the program. There were significant letters of support, and we felt one that was important to mention was the National Defense Industry Association, which indicated their support, but also some really important federal partners, including Sbdc, the SBA, and others that work directly to support the defense industry in Virginia. We did ask some questions about intellectual property. Because of the structure of the application, it was confirmed that the intellectual property that would be developed using these state resources would be retained at ODU, and that's our expectation. We did request, the work group was interested in seeing separate budgets for the education system versus the compliance system. The compliance system is a learning tool for the students that are in the classes. And there were some shifts in project budget overall, from salaries to contract services, that we would just like to bring to your attention. In brief, based on our review, we are recommending that this application not be approved on the basis that it does not have broad regional engagement from the localities within the 3 regions that are collaborating on the application. And it does not meet the local match requirement, which was developed by the board for competitive application, which requires that 20% of the match be local, meaning non-state, coming from a local source. And that is not the case. That there is match in this application. It's outside of the regions who are applying. Also worth noting, the program guidelines for statewide competitive projects require that match and local match among the regions applying be included in the application. Staff believes this application could be considered for approval if the board recognizes match outside of the collaborating regions. In this application, Fairfax EDA in Region 7, which is committed cash and in kind, particularly for outreach and recruitment of individuals to participate in the education program. And so that's my presentation.
Thanks, Sarah. Tom and I had a lot of conversation with Sarah and Eric about this. As she mentioned, this is the 3rd time it's been submitted. First time we're seeing it as a board, because the staff have gone back, the work group's gone back to try to make it fit within our requirements. It's seemingly important, but it's not matching our criteria, and despite having gone back a couple of times, doesn't seem to that notion isn't settling. So comments, love some discussion about this.
Nancy, it's Debbie, and I've somewhat familiar because this thing started a long time ago with a phone call I got in this space. And I've had a wonderful conversation with Sarah about all this, by the way. And this thing has really been improved dramatically. I mean, I can tell you that they're much more than even that she referred to. So the critical questions, two things here. One, we've identified for a long time that cybersecurity is absolutely critical in the state. And we know that, you pick your number, tens of thousands of openings exist in that space. And what we also know is that by and large, the contractors in this space charge 4 to 5 times what the cost of this program would be, because this is being done by a not-for-profit. And so you sort of say, well, look at the bigger purpose, and the way Sarah set it up is exactly right. The bigger purpose is this is a pretty good thing. And by the way, it just doesn't impact these 3 regions. Everybody in the state can use this thing. And if you know anything about Old Dominion and distance learning, they and George Mason are the 2 institutions on the 4-year side that are supposed to do it. So the real issue comes down to 2 things. One, I think, can be handled with a condition, which Sarah and I discussed. And that is that we want to see more local engagement on this and require that as a condition. How much more, whatever you can have. And the other one is, the people in the locales didn't put up all the match, somebody else did. Well, I've spent some time thinking about this. The fact that somebody outside of the regions in our state was willing to put money in it, we should do a backflip over that. I mean, that's just incredible. It does not overcome the first statement I made, and that is that I think they do have to get more localities to come to work on this. And so, to me, and you all may have a different opinion on this because I have spent right much time thinking about it, you don't want to set a precedent that'll bite us in the future. So let's require whatever Sarah and the staff think we need to have more local collaboration in this at the appropriate levels. But to me, getting money from outside the region, particularly by an EDA that thinks it's worth it, particularly Fairfax County, which is as good as there is in the state, I think that's manna from heaven. Now, maybe I'm missing something. It is new. And what's different there is, and Sarah's dead right, we didn't contemplate this because we never thought somebody would contribute from outside of a region to somebody else's region. But the fact that they did, to me, is actually a statement of the significance of the program. So that's just sort of my editorial comment, but others may have a very different point of view about this.
Thanks, Debbie. I see that Leah has raised her hand, and then George, and then Jim. So Leah.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy. Yeah, I was on the work group, and we wrestled with this. I think I've been on this work group twice for this this project, and there are some things, intellectual property, the local match. But Debbie, to your point, there are ways that we could work with this, especially with the outside investment. But what I'm hesitating against is that we're essentially setting a precedent for kind of considering outside match at this competitive level, basically pushing against the policy that we set as a board. And I have concerns with this being that project to set a new precedent to consider kind of, waiving board policy that has worked for us for a couple of years. So that's where my concerns are coming from. Now, to your point, if we can bring up the local match and then consider the Fairfax dollars, then maybe we kind of meet in the middle. But I'm not comfortable kind of breaking precedent at this point for because there's several other things within this project that aren't entirely clear at this juncture.
All right, Madam Chair.
Yes, George.
Yeah, just a comment on it. My thought is that at least raising the issue of whether or not it would make sense to involve additional regions beyond just the 3, 4, and 5 that have been part of this process. And I think particularly given the commitment of Fairfax Economic Development Authority and actually all 3 jurisdictions that I represent in the Senate, Alexandria, Fairfax, and Prince William at least sent letters of support for this type of thing. So I think it's something that is significant to Northern Virginia and might be worthwhile in including the people up here. as part of the applicant process here. And also you have in the Fredericksburg area, you have Stafford, Fredericksburg, and Spotsylvania, all three that sent letters of support as well. So I think there may be a broadening of the base to be part of the applicant participants here, rather than just sort of taking outside money from someone who's not part of one of the regions that's there. And I also think that W. Wynn talked about the relationship between Old Dominion and George Mason. The two of them actually have been partnering together on a lot of different things right now. And there may be value in bringing George Mason into this process as well. And I think, George Mason, clearly has a lot of strength in cybersecurity and some of these types of things, and I think could bring a lot to the table that would be helpful here. So I think there are ways to expand the base of who's putting in the application, rather than having, just the 3, 4, and 5, and really 5 sort of the main one in terms of what's driving it there, with Old Dominion and some of the local jurisdictions at least supportive, and have that be the focal point, but others participating. So I think the better approach might be to sort of go back out and try to bring others in and make it a much stronger application from the start.
Thanks, George. And Sarah, do you know if that's been suggested and rejected or not, or do you know what the issue is there?
Thank you, Nancy. Yes, Senator, this application was heard by Region 7, Northern Virginia, last year, and the council elected to not approve the application. This application was also heard by Region 6, and Region 6 did not take action on the application. I do think it's a good question, and I would perhaps encourage Region 5 council leadership to reach out to Northern Virginia, because as you've noted, there is a significant amount of support in the form of letters of support and other intended contributions for the project.
And Jim Dyke, I think you're next.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on what George said and what Sarah said, and especially what Dubby said. I think that this has got the basis of being a very, very successful program. One thing that Dubby said, and I think goes to what Leah talked about a precedent, was that this is something that has applicability across the state. And I think to the extent that we can get this right and get the outside help in that is being offered, that this would, I think, be a really good model that could be used around the state. And it's just sort of ironic. Dubby and I were just on a call yesterday with the president of George Mason University, and I think they would be more than happy, picking up on what Senator Barker said, to join in to make this a more targeted, more aggressive program. And I think we need to go back to these folks and ask them if they would rethink it, especially I think Region 7's leadership. If they hear that the state board is interested in them considering this and looking at it, I think that might have some impact. So I think we ought to follow Dubby's lead on this and see if we can't get this thing to work.
Great, thank you. There was an unknown hand raised. Does anyone?
It looks like Pia.
Pia?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I worked with Leah and the staff served on the working group that reviewed this application. I have to commend the staff and the applicant for their efforts to try and forge a way forward to have it fit within our guidelines, and also at the same time show and reflect a project that can in fact be successful. But there were continuing questions and concerns. The local support, certainly, which has been discussed at great length. And also there was some question of, and I'm still concerned about the ownership of the intellectual property here. It is critical that if this goes forward, that as a condition, the ownership of that intellectual property is clear, so that there's no question there. And also there was some question and concern, and I'm not sure that we were entirely satisfied with the numbers showing the return on investment of this project. So it may be that it's one that we should continue to work on, but I will say the staff has dedicated substantial time and effort to working with this, and there have been improvements, no doubt about it, but it still leaves a little bit to be desired, in my view, in terms of a project that's workable, matches up to our, and I'm not as concerned about precedent as my colleague Ms. Freemow is, but because there's always a way to define precedent and define the particular circumstances, but there are enough questions here that it is not ready to be approved by this board, in my view, and cannot recommend it at this point.
By the way, so you'll know, I'm not necessarily recommending that we do it. I actually think throwing it back and cleaning it up, and George Mason can deliver Region 7, I can promise you. And if they're interested in it, and I mean, there has been a ton of work on this. I do think it needs to be cleaned up. I mean, you have to have a condition on intellectual property. There's no choice. The thing that I find interesting, and this was a mess when it started, by the way, having a low-cost alternative in a place which is essential. I mean, everybody's going to have this if you're a DoD contractor. It's just very appealing, and I like the idea it's coming out of us, to be very honest with you. Yeah. But I do think there's more work to clean it up.
Thank you.
Other comments? It sounds like we have enough people who are interested in this going forward, but would like to have it go back, and I'll just put quotes around clean it up. I need a motion one way or the other. I need a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move that we send it back to be further addressed, and that the parties that have put this together work with other regions and other entities, be they local EDAs or that type of thing, and potentially other universities such as George Mason, to be able to put together a very strong proposal that we would have no question about in terms of approving.
Thank you, Senator Barker. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Debbie. Debbie Wynn seconded it. Any further discussion? I believe we need a roll call again. Andrea, all those in favor, please say yay. Those opposed, say nay.
Thank you. I'll start with you, Vice Chair Agee.
Yay.
Delegate Bagby.
Aye.
Secretary Ball.
Aye.
Senator Barker.
Aye.
Ben Davenport.
Yay.
Jim Dyke.
Yes.
Speaker Fillercorn.
Aye.
Haywood Fralin.
Aye.
Leah Freemow.
Aye.
Senator Howell.
Aye.
Doug Wanarina.
Aye.
Secretary Lane.
Aye.
Delegate Mugler.
Aye.
Secretary Carney.
Aye.
Senator Ruff.
Aye.
Todd Stottlemyre.
Aye.
Robin Sullenberger.
Aye.
Delegate Torian. Pia Trigiani.
Aye.
Marilyn West. Joe Wilson.
Aye.
And Debbie Wynn.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. It sounds like the motion is approved. Thank you, Senator Barker and Debbie, for thoughtful discussion. We now have a variety of other applications to look at. They may not generate quite as much discussion, but I love the discussion. So I hope that we will be just as engaged. And Sarah, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. And I want to be mindful of time. So if I move too quickly, please just let me know. But there are full summaries in your board packets. There were 8 proposals to take action on. 6 of the 9 regions participated in submitting a per capita application. The total requests in this category were about 7.7 million, and match of approximately 7 million included, and that included $3.5 million in local match. So still evident in our applications. Next slide. The first project I'd like to describe to you, which is on page 17 of your packet, is called FAME, the Federation of Advanced Manufacturing Education. The applicant in this particular project is the Commonwealth Center for Advanced Manufacturing in partnership with Richard Bland College. The goal of this project is to fill critical gaps in unmet need for trained individuals in advanced manufacturing. They are going to establish the first in-state chapter for FAME, which is an initiative that's received high acclaim. It was originally created by Toyota as a model, and it is similar to an apprenticeship or a cooperative learning opportunity. So individuals who participate will be employed and then do training on site. The request is for $613,000. A significant amount of those funds will be used to upfit an advanced manufacturing learning laboratory on site at CCAM. They are expecting over the 2-year period to graduate 17 individuals, 9 employers served, and to become served, you do need to become a member of the FAME chapter, fully launch the chapter, and of course upfit the AMT lab, which is a certification. Staff is recommending this project for approval, with funds being released when the program receives the 9 company membership commitments. So we have letters of support. We would like to see them secure the memberships before moving forward. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Sarah. And I might just remind everyone we're going to take all these together to approve, unless you want to pull anything out. And also, Sarah, I don't know we're going to assume that everyone's read the information, so I think we can go very quickly through these.
That's great. I'll do that then. Thank you. The next project is called Nova Deep IET. The funding request you can see there, Northern Virginia Community College is the applicant. It is a 2-part, a 2-component application, if you will, one directed at students to increase the number of students through creation of summer bridge programs and some other enhanced programming, and also to increase the number of dual enrollment teachers who would be available in high schools to offer coursework to these students. Your outcomes are there. Based on the work group discussion, staff is recommending this project be deferred and the applicant consider a planning grant to look at perhaps a demand study around dual enrollment credentialing for teachers in partnership with the school divisions in Northern Virginia. We believe this is important, but could perhaps be more strategic in their approach. Next slide, please. The next application is Virginia's Gateway Region VGR sites. They're requesting $1.8 million to advance 16 sites totaling 1,681 acres in Region 4 to a Tier 4 on the VEDP site characterization scale. One of the regional economic development organizations had led this effort, and the funds would be used to do things like phase 1 environmental reviews, wetland surveys, geotechnical evaluation, etc. There is local match in this project. Staff is recommending that this application be deferred to allow for additional prioritization and for the applicant to demonstrate more regional collaboration, particularly post-award in terms of marketing strategically the sites. Next slide, please. The Richmond County Commerce Center expansion. This is site development and infrastructure in Region 6. This is a really exciting application, and it involves Richmond. and Westmoreland counties, and they are working diligently on the development of a Regional Industrial Facility Authority, a RIFA. This project is going to be important. There are a very limited number of business-ready sites, particularly in this area in Region 6, and this is going to help them, these two sites which are publicly owned, okay, make them more business-ready. The requests are listed as you see. This is going to advance 45 acres to Tier 5 on the business-ready site scale. There is going to be evidence, joint marketing and promotion between these two counties, which is quite an accomplishment in this region. We're very excited about this being a catalyst project for others. We are recommending this application for approval. The Shenandoah Valley Sites Enhancement Program, if you remember, I believe you reviewed this at your last meeting. This comes to us from Region 8. That's the Shenandoah Valley. There are a number of participating localities, including Augusta, Frederick, Rockingham, Shenandoah, and Warren County. They are all providing letters of support or cash for the project. This is very closely aligned with the industries in their G&D plan. This will elevate 6 sites. They have prioritized 6 regionally significant sites totaling 1,112 acres, and it will advance them to the next tier, as noted on the slide. Staff is recommending this application for approval. The next project is in the startup ecosystem category. This is the SIH Locked R3E2 project, which is, we also call SOVA 2.0. The applicant in this case is the SOVA Innovation Hub Corporation, in partnership with Longwood University Office of Community and Economic Development. This is an implementation project that came out of their REI, their Regional Entrepreneurship Investment Strategy, okay? The request is for $449,000. It is to act on certain recommendations and strategies in that plan. There is match that is provided, as well as some additional leverage. They are projecting that over the 2-year project period, there will be more than 200 entrepreneurs trained, 30 new businesses created, new jobs created. They're going to be focusing on increasing the survival rate of startups in Region 3. And increasing, in particular, the number of minority and women-owned businesses. Based on the work group discussion, staff is recommending this project for approval. The next application on page 31, our summary, is the Northern Virginia Smart Region Initiative. The goal of this project is to really establish Northern Virginia as a center of excellence for urban technology innovation. And this is about smart cities and all the technologies that are used to help us move and do things. And this is actually a continuation of an effort that we're really excited about. It will expand a couple of things, capital investment opportunities. So really looking to create more financial resources, investors for companies in this space in Northern Virginia. They want to accelerate the growth of high-tech startups in this space, particularly smart technologies. And then they want to create pathways to commercialization through work with industry partners and others. The request is here. You can see the amounts. And we are recommending this project for approval. The next project is from Region 1, Energy Storage and Electrification Manufacturing Jobs. This project, just to note, is an implementation project that came out of a project called the Solar Playbook. And Appalachian Voices actually led the charge to explore how Southwest Virginia could really capitalize on this emerging solar green energy space. One of the opportunities of that research effort was energy storage and electrification. And that's the intent of this particular project. We are recommending this project for approval.
Thanks, Sarah. Staff is recommending 2 referrals and 6 projects to move forward with approval. Is there any discussion? If not, may I have a motion for approval?
This is Frank. I would move that we accept the report and approve them.
This is Ben. I second that.
Thank you. So that's, I think, Frank Ruff and Ben Davenport.
Correct. Yeah.
All those, I believe we need to have full roll call again. Andrea?
Yes. I'll start with you, Vice Chair Agee.
Yes.
Delegate Bagby.
Aye.
Secretary Ball.
Aye.
Thank you. Senator Barker.
Aye.
Ben Davenport.
Yes.
Jim Dyke.
Yes.
Speaker Fillercorn.
Aye.
Haywood Fralin. Try again. I think he just came back on. Haywood Fralin. Okay. Leah Freemow.
Aye.
Senator Howell. Senator Howell.
I think she's left the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Doug Wanarina.
Aye.
Secretary Lane.
Aye.
Delegate Mugler.
Aye.
Secretary Carney.
Hey.
Aye.
I'm at a Go Virginia board meeting, but they're taking a vote.
Senator Ruff.
Aye.
Todd Stottlemyre.
Aye.
Robin Sullenberger.
Aye.
Delegate Torian. Pia Trigiani.
I haven't heard of Pete.
Aye. But if I could please abstain from the vote and have the record show that I'm abstaining from the vote on SIH LODE 11. That was a lot of alphabet soup. The Longwood Project, I serve on the board and would think it best not to vote on that one, so I abstained.
Thank you, noted. Okay, and then I'll call for Marilyn West. I think she's not here. Okay, Joe Wilson.
Aye.
Thank you. And Debbie Nguyen.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Yes.
We have 4 applications for regional ERR, and the good news is we only have to go through this roll call one more time, assuming that you want to take these as a group. So Sarah, if you can quickly go through the ERR project applications.
Yes, thank you. So these are in the economic resilience and recovery category. We discussed this kind of subtype of Go Virginia grant. There were 4 proposals submitted, ecosystem and 1 cluster scale up. You can see the funding request and match submitted there on the slide. Next slide. The first one is from Region 4. The Virginia Restaurant, Lodging, and Travel Association is requesting funds to support the economic recovery of the hospitality industry, and specifically to address the high levels of COVID-driven unemployment through upskilling and other training opportunities. They are proposing to support workforce development in the restaurant lodging sector by supporting un or underemployed workers with COVID-related training and skills training to help businesses succeed as they reopen, and we hope and know safely, and enable those individuals to move back into those sectors. And there's also an enhancement of an industry-specific job board. Significantly, this project includes participation from Chesterfield, Hanover, Henrico, and the city of Richmond, and they are all contributing cash to this project, which is which is significant and I think demonstrates the level of support for the region. Staff is recommending this project for approval. The next project is Startup Stability. This is coming to us from Region 5. The Portsmouth Development Foundation is requesting funds to provide co-working space and supportive services specifically to early stage businesses which were significantly impacted by the pandemic. So to identify companies, organizations perhaps that had been in commercial space, had been forced because of a reduction in sales to have to retreat into their homes, to bring them back out and we believe to provide some professional support and services to allow them to rebuild their business base. There is a significant focus on mentor services, underserved individuals. There's some exciting partnerships with an organization called Black Brand in the Hampton Roads region, and we're recommending this application for approval. The next project is called the Virginia Cyber Skills Academy. This is from Region 7. There's a not-for-profit called the Women's Society of Cyber Jitsu, and they were requesting funding to assist COVID-impacted workers to get skill certifications to enable them to move into high-demand cybersecurity roles. This is a very innovative partnership involving GIAC. They offer global information assurance certifications, very highly recognized certifications in cybersecurity. Based on the work group discussion responses, we recommend this project for approval. The next project on page 43 of your packet is called the Sbdc Digital Business Resiliency. This is coming from Region 9. They are requesting funds specifically to address an identified need, improve economic resiliency by helping companies improve their digital presence and develop e-commerce platforms. In terms of participation from localities, we've got Albemarle, Culpeper, Fluvanna, Louisa, Madison, Nelson, Orange, Rappahannock, and the city of Charlottesville. And they estimate that over the grant period, they'll provide assistance to up to 240 businesses. Based on the discussion and our review of the application, we're recommending this for approval.
Thank you, Sarah. So we have 4 ERR applications. Staff have reviewed carefully and are recommending approval. Is there any discussion? If not, may I have a motion for approval?
Move to approve.
And second? I'm sorry, who moved to approve?
Joe Wilson.
Thank you, Joe. And all those in favor, we will do another roll call. Andrea?
Sure. Vice Chair Agee?
Yay.
Delegate Bagby?
Aye.
Secretary Ball?
Aye.
Senator Barker?
Aye.
Ben Davenport?
Aye.
Jim Dyke?
Yes.
Speaker Fillercorn?
Aye.
Haywood Fralin?
Aye.
Leah Freemau?
Aye.
Senator Howell? Doug Wanarina?
Aye.
Secretary Lane?
Aye.
Delegate Mugler?
Aye.
Secretary Carney?
Aye.
Senator Ruff?
Aye.
Todd Stottlemyre?
Aye.
Robin Sullenberger?
Aye.
Delegate Torian?
Aye.
Pia Tridiani?
Aye.
Marilyn West? Joe Wilson?
Aye.
And Debbie Nguyen.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you very much, Andrea. And thanks to everyone for your indulgence. This is really important work, and I think we've already approved some very significant things that are changing the economy in Virginia. There's just a few more informational items. Sarah, if you could quickly review those informational items?
Yes. You will notice in your packet that we had a letter of resignation from Steve Smith. He's unfortunately no longer eligible to serve on the state board. He has moved to a neighboring state. He's living in Tennessee, and unfortunately, I see your face, Pia. You'll have to call him yourself. No, we are sad to get that resignation, and we have been working on an additional appointment to replace him. We've also provided a summary for 2 enhanced capacity building projects that were administratively approved. One of them is some, we think, very exciting research to do a market study and a concept design for some additional laboratory space in Region 2, specifically around the biotech industry. And the second is for 757 CoLab, which is to support some continued staffing and the exploration and implementation of collaborative working space in Region 5. And I won't go through the others. There are fine summaries for 3 and recovery fast access projects. Those were also administratively approved, just shy of $200,000. Those are listed there, and we're happy to answer any questions now or after the meeting regarding those. You will also find a link to a collection of Go Virginia funded projects to date. I will be working on a presentation for our next meeting to give you folks a nice historical perspective of how we're trending, but volume continues to go up. And then lastly, I'll just mention to you notice of a project that was withdrawn. There is a memo describing the Region 7 Council's decision to de-obligate funding for the Centurion Innovation Hub, which is a project approved by the state board last spring. That applicant has been invited to perhaps rescope and submit another application, and we obviously at DHCD, would welcome that opportunity. So those funds, 1.68 million, will be unobligated and returned to Region 7's per capita pool.
Okay, Sarah, thank you so much. And again, I want to thank everyone for the time and the commitment that you've made, for the good discussion and the good decisions that I think we
Nancy?
Yes.
Just briefly, I'm sorry. I hate to interrupt. I don't know a better way to do it. Mr. Sullenberger and Mr. Dyke both have their hands up. I want to make sure we don't miss them if they've got comments or questions.
Oh, great.
Yield to Jim. Go ahead, Jim.
No, I did not know I had my hand up. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'll yield to my good friend from Highland County.
All right. Sarah, if I could just get a brief update. We formed a work group to make sure that our policy on the site development initiatives were as closely aligned with the Virginia Business Ready Sites at VDP as possible. Can you give us a brief status update on where that stands?
Yeah, I would be happy to, Robin. So following the board's decision to modify the sites policy to include privately owned sites, we convened with one representative from each region, a work group to develop more specific guidance around sites investments for Go Virginia. That group has met 3 times, and we're still working on the final version of that guidance. Staff is scheduled to meet tomorrow and review the last round of recommended edits from members of the team. But I think overwhelmingly, Robin, that's been a wonderful experience. It's been a new way for us to engage a different set of stakeholders, specifically local and regional economic developers. And I think they've been very grateful for the opportunity to contribute. We've learned a lot of things, and of course, we've been working side by side with our partners at BEDP. So we hope to have that guidance finalized within the next 2 weeks and in place for the next round of applications.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I can't see hands raised just on my screen. So are there any other comments? Well, if not, I look forward to meeting again. Our next meeting is June the 15th. We will see if we can hold that meeting in person. Meanwhile, I hope everyone who hasn't had a vaccine will have gotten it by then, and we'll be in touch. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.